Hi. I thought that I'd actually make a video about how I make schmaltzy strips. You might be just starting making comic strips, or you might have never made one at all and just curious about the process. So I begin every comic strip with a template. Usually I make that first. My template's 4 squares wide. The outer edge is actually filled with white, and the squares themselves are cut out. That 20 minutes later was just me thinking what to write about. I couldn't think of what to write, so instead I just ended up making the strip about Lily not being sure what to write about, and then deciding to write about a character that's not sure what to write about. It got pretty out of hand. But anyway, so I had the idea, and the very first stage is actually just blocking out the form with blue lines. And it can be very rough. Basically, you're just trying to feel out the form of the character. After that, I turned down the layer to about 40% opacity, and then started with a more polished dark blue line layer. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just making sure that all the limbs are correct, and everything looks in its proper place. Everything's been moved around to my satisfaction. After that, I want to just block out the whole thing. So with this strip, I wanted to keep it quite simple. So we're using the same pose each time, but I'm figuring out a way of changing the expressions to reflect what she's going to be thinking about in each panel. So after that, it's time to go into the proper line art phase. So to do that, I turn down the layer to about 40% opacity again. And I'll go in first with the straight edges, because I find that these are the easiest to remove when you're putting in your curves later on. This takes a while. Okay, so I've erased those lines to put in her arms. Now, what I do next is I actually use the rotate function, so that I can get natural curves with my wrist. So I can move my wrist, and if you're left-handed, maybe you want to rotate the screen the other way. But since I'm right-handed, I like to rotate it right, so that I'm actually following the natural curve of my wrist. There are different techniques you can do and practices you can do to make your technique better without having to rotate the page, but I mean, no one would know if you did it. And I was trying to make this quick, but it's up to you. It's your own personal style. So after that, usually I'll fill in any blacks, or like any fills they're called. So I'm getting quite close. I think I'm just about to fill in the block colors. Oh no, actually, I forgot. One last thing I like to do on line art, just to get a fresh perspective, is, pardon the pun, is to literally flip the whole thing. Then I can see if there's anything that I don't quite like, and I can move it like her hair clip so that I'm happy with the composition, and then I flip it back around again. Then I start going into detail, and now I'm filling in the simple block colors of her laptop, the desk, and the chair. After that, since it's the same image each time, I believe I've just duplicated the... No. I lie. Not that bit yet. Because I'm duplicating over and over again, it's pretty plain at the moment, and we could make it a bit more interesting just by adding some background and foreground elements. Just props to make it, more interesting. No, so since she's a writer, coffee mug, obviously, and you can put in little details to just help tell your story, or just give the characters more of a feeling of belonging, like the world is inhabited. With the laptop, with the Pear logo, I couldn't actually draw it freehand onto the computer, so I just drew it as normal on a new layer, and then used the free transform tool in Clip Studio just to realign it onto the laptop lid. You can see there I'm just putting in a little writer's notebook and a pen, and I think I'm going to put in some, coffee stains and some scrumpled up paper. Basically, just to make the composition just look a bit more, less bland, a little less static. And once I've done that, I believe I'm going to duplicate it over to the other frames once I've just cleaned up a few touches here and there, because again, any mistakes that you make are going to be duplicated over if you do this. So for example, you can see the two little lines that have crossed over into the next panel. So I just get rid of those, just to make sure that, because every time you duplicate it, you're going to have to fix another problem. And once I've done that, I duplicate it over for the last two panels. And then obviously I've got this big white background. Now, this is sort of like a cheaty thing I do with my strip. You don't have to do the same thing. You could do absolutely lavish backgrounds. But with Schmaltzy, there's a sort of posterized gradient background I usually like to do. It's not amazing, but it helps keep it interesting. So basically what I did was I went to the very last layer, the very bottom one, created a new one under that, used the magic wand tool, the second one down, to refer to all layers, and then holding shift, I was able to select all the areas that I wanted to fill in, put in a gradient, and then use the posterization tool to give it that, posterized feel, or sort of newspaper print feel. After that was done, I then edited each of her expressions and also put in this little scribble above her head in the third one, just to kind of break up that, multiplicity. I don't know if that's the word. But again, if you duplicate over, you have to try hard to actually make it visually interesting for the 4 panels. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts, double-edged sword and all that. So yes, the final part I'd say is the dialogue, which is just as important as, if not more important than the art. I know that's a bit controversial, but if you think about it, like a poorly drawn comic, like Rage Comics and stuff, if the writing is good enough, a writing can carry bad art, but good art can't carry bad writing, if that makes sense. So yeah, but when you're writing, at least with the first panel, you want to make it introductory. Or the second panel, you can see I'm moving words around until I get a sort of oval shape to the whole block of text. And that becomes important later on, because what you want is that sort of oval shape for your word balloons, which Clip Studio handily enough does actually have a tool that allows you to create word balloons. There is a tail function on it as well, but we're not going to be using it just because they are thought bubbles. That was me just checking how to spell embarrassing, because unfortunately, as lovely as Clip is, it doesn't have a spell checker. So you got to be careful with that. Also, I'm outing myself on not remembering how to spell embarrassing. How embarrassing and ironic. So yeah, I'm now using the word balloon tool, and I'm on a curved balloon, which allows me to plot out the points and just create a very tight sort of fit around my word bubbles. So once I've done that, I believe I'm going to go for all the other ones. And the great thing about the tool as well is if the text is on the same layer like that, the two balloons will be linked. So sometimes it is better to sort of separate out your text so it's not a huge paragraph of text. So if you separate it out into two thoughts, obviously not like mid-sentence, but like in the first panel. Got to make an amazing novel, got to make some money, and then, but what do I write about? You can separate those two and just make it take up a bit more of the panel real estate. Then I've switched to the rounded balloon to create these little bumps around them, and because again it's on the same layer, it makes they all merge, and it makes this neat sort of thought balloon effect. After that, you can see that those two weren't on the same layer, so I merged them to the same layer and the bubbles automatically merged. It's easy merging them, but not so easy separating them out again. Finally putting in the tails just by using the rounded balloon again. And then my favorite part is this. So I select all the parts that make up the template, you know, the overlay, and I move them to the top above the word balloons, and that just pops everything within the little panel squares. And I don't know, it's always magic watching it sort of kind of come together like that. And apart from a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of moving here and there, that's pretty much it. The only thing that's left to do is to put the proper number on, which again is just something I do. Put in the date that it was written on, so I can see how long it's been since I've written my last strip and feel bad and cry, and then finally put the signature and export it. Usually I go to about 40% if I'm uploading to Twitter, because I'm downscaling from like 5,000 pixels or something. The Twitter can't handle it. And then finally I'll save as a backup so that I can go back and even reuse previous scenes. And that's it. That's a Schmaltzy comic.